When Mario 3 was released in the US, the popularity of the NES was actually starting to wear off. Part of the reason why was because Nintendo's biggest rival at the time, Sega, released a successor to their 8-bit Sega Master System console, which was the 16-bit Sega Mega Drive, or the Genesis as known in America. While the Mega Drive wasn't completely stealing the market from the NES, Nintendo did realize that it was pretty big competition and knew that over time, people were gonna get tired of the 8-bit games on their console, and likely be siding with the more graphically impressive Genesis. Well, it was decided that Nintendo would make their own successor to the NES, with talks of the console going as far back as 1987. Hell, even by 1988, Nintendo president at the time, Hiroshi Yamauchi, announced that a Super Mario Bros. 4 was going to be made for the console, being produced once again by Shigeru Miyamoto, music composed by Koji Kondo, and this time around, Takashi Tezuka was going to be alone as the game director. While initially being called Super Mario Bros. 4, the game's final title would end up being Super Mario World, but Japan would still use Super Mario Bros. 4 as a subtitle. This would get dropped overseas for the sake of having a more simpler title. But yes, Super Mario World is canonically Super Mario Bros. 4. Apparently, a total of 16 to 23 team members were working on Super Mario World, and according to Miyamoto, production of the game was actually pretty rushed. Nintendo really wanted Mario World to be a launch title for their new console, so as a result, there was a lot that was cut from the game. In what I personally think is one of the most bizarre statements from Miyamoto ever, he would go on to say that Super Mario World is actually an unfinished game. I can't even comprehend just how you can look at a game that's as tightly made and expertly designed, but somehow still think it's unfinished? The specific information about how much was cut from the game would be discussed for years, but we would really get a good idea about all the scrap content thanks to the infamous Giga Leak back in 2020. This leak would give us access to older builds and source codes for many Nintendo games, with Super Mario World having a lot of unreleased assets and concepts finally seeing the light of day. I'll be sure to bring up a few of the more interesting ones later in this review, but I definitely recommend going look up all the cut content listed on the Mario Wiki and the Cutting Room 4. But getting back to Miyamoto briefly, despite declaring that Mario World was unfinished and saying that there actually is a lot of cut content from the game, he would actually still declare that this is his personal favorite Mario game. So there's that. Also, as super illegal as the Giga Leak definitely was, Nintendo was very likely never gonna release these to the public in any way to begin with, so this digital preservation, while invasive to a pretty huge corporate company, was pretty cool on its own. Plus, Nintendo fucking sucks sometimes. Worth it. Well, Super Mario World would get released just in time for the launch of Nintendo's newest console, the Super Famicom, in December 1990. Of course, the system would get localized a year later in America as the Super Nintendo, releasing in August 1991 with Mario World. While the Super Nintendo didn't sell as many numbers as the NES, it'd still go on to sell 49 million units, and its best-selling game would end up being Super Mario World, mostly thanks to it being a pack-in title. I'm pretty sure literally everyone who had a Super Nintendo growing up had a copy of Mario World with it. Hell, growing up, my cousins had 2 copies of the game for some reason. To describe my personal attachment I have with this game would honestly take years to explain. I've been playing Super Mario World for such a long time, and my family didn't even have a Super Nintendo in their house. There's so much about this game that I just love and adore, and to this day, it's my personal favorite 2D Mario game. I can't even express how excited I am to finally talk about this game because it means so much to me. So I'm just gonna jump right into it. Taking place not too long after Mario 3, Mario, Luigi, and Peach decide to go on a vacation to a new location, Dinosaur Island. However, Bowser and his Koopalings are already on Dinosaur Island and took over all of its surrounding areas. Shortly after the Mario brothers arrive, Peach gets kidnapped again. So it's up to Mario, Luigi, and their new dinosaur friend Yoshi to save Dinosaur Island from the Koopalings and rescue Princess Peach from Bowser. Again, yeah, same plot as before, but now we're on Dinosaur Island. Let's get to the game. There are 7 main worlds you go to in the game, and 2 special ones that I'll discuss later. Just like with Mario 3, Super Mario World uses a map screen. World probably has my favorite map screens out of the entire series. I just love the art style and how much varieties these islands can have in this game. It's just so charming and full of personality. Mario's gameplay and world is probably my favorite out of all the 2D Mario games. The controls are so spot spot on and perfect. It's basically a more refined Mario 3, and he retains a few things from 3 like sliding on slopes, and even the little fly jump he can do after running long enough. Mario can also still pick up shells and now other items, and the controls for it are like 10 times better, seriously. The one new move that Mario has in this game is the spin jump, which can be used to kill enemies and break apart certain blocks. It could also make Mario invincible when bouncing on certain enemies and even obstacles, like some spiky enemies or buzzsaws. It's a pretty godlike move, but unsurprisingly, this isn't the only broken move Mario can do in this game. But before I get to that, I always liked when 2D side-scrollers gave characters the ability to just look up. This doesn't really help anything, and I don't know why it matters to me so much, but I just really like when games add in that detail, and I personally feel it could help give a game more personality. And Mario's looking up sprites in this game are some of my all-time favorites. Nothing else to add, I just really like the sprites. Oh yeah, since we're on the Super Nintendo now, we can use 4 more buttons, including the L and R buttons, but they're only used in this game for panning the screen left and right when Mario is standing still. It's not entirely useful, but it's there. Let's talk about the power-ups, but this is actually where Mario World kinda lacks in comparison to 3, mainly because this game kinda significantly cut down the power-ups. Apart from the mushroom, the fire flower returns and works like before. You can even sort of rapid fire in both directions when doing a spin jump, which is pretty cool. The star is also back, and it doesn't end after 2 seconds like it did in 3, so that's nice. One new thing for the series is the item stock at the top of the screen. This can hold on to any extra power-up you can pick up while in levels, and you can have the item in the slot drop down by pressing the select button. Or if you get hit by an enemy and turn back into small Mario, it'll automatically drop whatever item's in the stock. It's pretty helpful, but one downside for some people is how you can't really stock up on power-ups and bring them with you like you could in Mario 3, which does kinda stink. Still, the item stock is very useful, especially when holding on to an extra item you like using in the game. Which leads me to the next power-up. Easily the best one in this game is the freaking Cape Feather. God bless this power-up. It's basically an updated version of Raccoon Mario from 3, but like a million times more powerful. Obviously, the feather gives Mario a cape that can actually let him do a spin attack for fighting off enemies. But the most broken ability from the Cape Feather is that it can let Mario fly into the air. And if you hold the run button, Mario's gonna hold on to the cape as he glides down. Not only that, but if you tap the D-pad in the opposite direction, Mario will flap the cape and stay in the air longer. Once you get a good rhythm with it, Mario can literally stay in the air until the end of the level. It is so fucking helpful that I seriously can't recall a time where I played through this game and didn't use the Cape Feather. I love this power-up so much, and I'm gonna assume that because of its broken nature, it's never been brought back. At least not in this form. It is so godlike for speedrunning levels you don't like. There were actually a few other planned power-ups. The Raccoon Leaf was originally going to get brought back, but it ultimately got cut for the Cape Feather instead. There only existed one known screenshot of Raccoon Mario in World from a very blurry image, but thanks to the Giga Leak, we eventually got access to the original sprites. And it looks pretty fucking cool, but also kinda weird that Raccoon Mario was gonna appear in this game. The leak also included a different variant of the Cape Feather where Mario had wings instead of a cape, and a winged Mario wouldn't really be made real until the wing cap in Mario 64. There was also apparently an early version of the Cape Feather which had Mario wearing a helmet? Pretty interesting. But getting back to the final game, some other power-ups include the Power Balloon, which inflates Mario for a short time. It's mostly used in some bonus areas, along with helping Mario reach sections and levels that are hard to get to. And one of the last power-ups you can find in a level isn't necessarily a power-up, but it does add more to the gameplay. This was the first game in the series to introduce Mario's lovable dinosaur companion, Yoshi. Yoshi and the rest of his family were actually kidnapped by Bowser, and a lot of the Yoshis were placed into item blocks. So usually Mario can come across one of these Yoshis, where they hatch and Mario can ride around on them. Using Yoshi, he can stomp on enemies to kill them instantly, along with being able to jump on the same stuff that Mario can when he uses the spin jump. But Yoshi's main move is his tongue, which he can use to eat enemies or swallow items for Mario to collect. He can even swallow certain enemies to shoot fireballs. Hell, later on, if he eats Koopas that have blue shells, it'll give him wings. You can hop off Yoshi by pressing the spin jump button, or if you get hurt by an enemy, it'll knock Mario off and Yoshi will frantically run around. So you can can either quickly hop right back on Yoshi, or you can just let him run off and potentially fall off a cliff. Honestly, it's not the worst thing you can do to the poor bastard. Remember the map screen? Well, levels can glow either yellow or red. If it's yellow, it means it's just a regular level. But if it's red, that means that there's actually more than one way you can finish a level, meaning there's like different exits. And finding different exits can actually help you explore more of the maps. Why am I mentioning that real quick? Well, there are some levels where you need to use Yoshi to get to a different exit, but there's actually some occasions where you have to go underneath the goalpost to find a different one. So you can either use the cape feather to carefully maneuver around it, or you can do what most people do and just sacrifice Yoshi to a bottomless pit. Hey look, I love the little green guy more than anyone else, and you can call me evil for murdering him, but I know I'm not the only one who's done this to get all the exits cleared. So we're all going to hell. Also, it's pretty insane to remember that Yoshi was always planned to be in the original Super Mario Bros. And going back to the Giga Leak, it included a lot of early sprites for the characters, including Yoshi. It's so interesting seeing the evolution of Yoshi from early conception to how he looks in the final game. Hell, some of the prototype sprites actually kinda resemble the original concept sketch. Oh yeah, the leaks also included these unused sprites of an elderly blue Yoshi? What's the lore behind this dude? Is he Yoshi's grandpa? Another weird lore thing about Yoshi is that he has orange arms on his final sprite, but he doesn't have them in any later appearance or official artwork. The fuck's that about? Obviously, Yoshi has become an extremely popular and staple character for the whole franchise, eventually spawning his own series of games too. He's epic and I love him. The game also has these mini Yoshis that you can carry around. They have to eat enough stuff in order to grow into regular Yoshis. Not too much else to say, I just think they're really cute and I wanted to mention them. But there is one downside to Yoshi in Mario World, and it's that while you can take him with you to other levels, he can't enter castles or the new fortresses or ghost houses. I wonder why they made Yoshi operate like this. Hell, in Yoshi's Island, which is a prequel to Mario World, he literally travels through castles with baby Mario just fine. So why hasn't he been able to go back into them in some of the later mainline Mario games? What the fuck? But wrapping up some of the other items and or power-ups, there are these wings you can find in certain levels, but only Yoshi can use them, and they take you to the Coin Heaven sections, which return from Mario 3 and they're pretty fun. While you can still collect coins in levels, there are also 5 dragon coins in every level, which have Yoshi's face on them, and collecting all of them will get you a 1-up. In several levels, there are these berries hanging on bushes that Yoshi can eat. Eating 10 red berries can let Yoshi hatch an egg, which contain a mushroom. Speaking of mushrooms, if you have Yoshi but find another Yoshi egg in an item block, you'll get a 1-up mushroom as a bonus. Speaking of 1-ups, Mario World introduces one of my favorite items in the whole series, the elusive 3-up moons, which can only appear in a couple of levels. As the name suggests, you pick it up and you get 3 1-ups instead of just 1. I really like this item, but sadly they only ever appear in Mario World, and wouldn't make another appearance in the series until the boost mode in New Super Mario Bros. U. I have no clue why these didn't become a standard item in more games. It's such a neat idea. Oh yeah, there's also these roulette blocks in some levels, which randomly cycles through certain power-ups, so you gotta time it just right if you want to pick up a certain item. It's another fun concept, but it wouldn't appear in another game until the New Super Mario Bros. Series, 3D Land, and 3D World. Along with Mario Advance 4 for some reason, there is one small issue that I don't like about this game, and it's how the mushroom was reverted back to how it worked in the original game, so even if you have a power-up and get hurt by an enemy, you get changed back into Small Mario instead of regular Mario. They fixed this in Mario 3, but I'm not sure why they went back on it. But thinking about it more, it's probably just the leftover from the original Japanese version, especially when looking at the Japanese version of Mario 3, where it'll still turn you back into Small Mario even if you have a power-up. So even though they fixed that for Mario 3's US release, I guess this was just an oversight for Mario World. It doesn't break the game for me though. Getting to the enemy lineup, a lot of the regular enemies return like the Koopas, Piranha Plants, Bullet Bills, Boos, Goombas, Bob-ombs, Buzzy Beetles, and even Spinies and Dry Bones. Plus, remember how indestructible Dry Bones was? Well, the damn cape feather can actually kill the bastard if you spin into him. Can you see why I love this power-up so much? There's also some different variants of old enemies, and some newer ones you can fight like the Flying Hammer Brother, a skeleton version of the Buzzy Beetle called Bony Beetle, Fuzzies, versions of Boo that could turn into blocks, and even these weird snake pattern Boos. Then there's the Charging Chucks, variants of those enemies that just hop around, the motherfucking Bonsai Bills, Moles, Blarg, who's probably my favorite, he's just a goofy dude with a funny name. There's even these big ass green bubbles, and there's Lakitu. One cool thing about Lakitu is that he can dangle 1-ups, and not only that, but if you manage to kill Lakitu, then you could ride in his little cloud. It doesn't really do much and disappears after a few seconds, but it's still a neat detail. Graphically, I feel like this game looks fantastic for an SNES launch title. It's so colorful. The music also received a huge upgrade. Composed yet again by the one and only Koji Kondo, Super Mario World soundtrack and even sound effects really showcase how much better the SNES sound chip is compared to the NES. It's so high quality and uses cool samples. I still think the audio holds up to this day. The music is insanely memorable and it's easily one of my all-time favorite Mario soundtracks. This would actually be the first real Mario game to have its entire soundtrack officially released in full on CD. The official soundtrack even includes an extra CD containing arrangements of tracks from World and other Mario games. It's pretty sweet, and if you really like this game's soundtrack, I highly recommend looking up fan-made restorations of the music. Basically, Mario fans tracked down the original instrument samples for the music and recreated several tracks from the game in higher quality, so shout out to the Church of Kondo for sharing a lot of these restorations. They used to go by the Brickster, so be sure to check their channel out if you haven't. One thing this soundtrack does that I'm sure doesn't really vibe with everyone is how the main theme is actually carried over into several levels, so a lot of the music can really sound the same in different parts of the game. It can be a bit repetitive for some, but for me, I just think this adds to the game's charm. I also just think the different takes on the title theme can have their own cool vibes depending on what level you're in. I guess I'll talk about that now. Let's take a look at all the worlds in Super Mario World, which all have unique names and can vary in number of levels. World 1 is Yoshi's Island, which is a pretty excellent beginner's world. There are 4 main levels, with one of them being water-based. One detail I really like is how on the map, the level is surrounded by a tiny puddle, and Mario kinda just walks into it. I just love that so much. At the end of just about every level, there's a goalpost with a bar traveling up and down. You don't have to touch the moving bar, but doing so will earn you some gold stars. And once you earn up to 100, it'll take you to a bonus game where you have to jump to match up some blocks. If you get enough of them correct, it'll earn you a good amount of 1-ups. Oh yeah, there's also these 1-up chambers that you can find in certain warp pipes in levels. It's another match game of sorts where you need to select the correct order of blocks, which are always randomized. Earning 3 in a row will get you a 1-up. These bonus areas are really cool and I like them. One thing you can find in just about every level are the checkpoint posts. 2 things I like about the checkpoint posts is that they're basically little tiny versions of the goalposts. And also, if you're Tiny Mario, walking through a checkpoint post will turn you into Big Mario, which is really helpful and cool. Moving on, Yoshi's Island is also home to 2 other levels. There's Yoshi's Home, which isn't really a level. It's just one screen where you're at Yoshi's house, and jumping at the speaker will show a message from Yoshi saying he's not home, and that he went rescue his family that were captured by Bowser. But as we see in the second level, Yoshi reveals that he was also captured by Bowser and thanks Mario for saving him. Also, according to speculation from the cutting room floor, that elderly blue Yoshi from the Giga Leak was more than likely going to be an NPC for Yoshi's Home, which kind of reminds me of how Cranky Kong was used in Donkey Kong Country. I wonder what this man would have said to Mario, probably some crazy shit. The other non-main level is the Yellow Switch Palace, which is the first of 4 Switch Palaces. When you first play through the game, you may notice that there are certain colored blocks that are completely invisible. It's not until you go to a Switch Palace where you have to activate the blocks. Not only can the blocks create solid platforms for certain levels, but the yellow blocks can actually contain mushrooms. And while there are multiple colored blocks, only 2 of them can contain power-ups, which is a little weird, but I'll discuss it more later. Every world ends with a numbered castle, which are obviously a bit more difficult to get through. Castle number 1 introduces this cool gimmick gimmick where Mario can climb on fences, and he can even knock off Koopas that are also climbing on the fences. Not only that, but if you climb above a Koopa, you can climb down on them to knock them off. This can actually build up your points, so much so that you can earn multiple 1-ups by knocking Koopas off this way. It's so great. And since the Koopalings are back, that means they're the main bosses for every castle, and their fights can actually be different from one another. Castle number 1 has you fighting Iggy, and all you have to do is knock him off the platform into the lava. Not a bad first boss, and I won't lie, I played Mario 64 and Mario World side by side growing up, mostly Mario 64 since the N64 was in my household, but as a kid, this first boss fight with Iggy kinda reminded me of the Bowser boss fights in 64, you know, where you were on this platform and had to toss him at the bombs. Oh, and every time you defeat a boss, you see a short little cutscene of Mario destroying the castle in different ways, with the first castle just being blown up. This takes us to World 2, Donut Plains. I like this one because it's the first time we get to use the Cape Feather. It's also the first world in the game to include an underground level, which is an auto-scroller, and a new idea for future Mario games, the Ghost Houses. These speak for themselves. Instead of just being the usual fortress or castle with boos like in Mario 3, the boos get their own houses now. And not every ghost house is the exact same since they can contain different gimmicks and enemies. There's 4 main levels in Donut Plains, but this is also the first world to have secret pathways to other levels, one of which being underwater. There's a secret ghost house, and the Green Switch Palace. You can get to the Green Switch Palace through the underground level, and it'll activate the green blocks in levels. And what's even more awesome, the green blocks contain Cape Feathers, which easily makes them my favorite. But they're also the only other color block that can give you a power-up. I feel like every color block probably could have contained a power-up of some kind, but they didn't really follow through with it. Looking at the other secret paths, there's the first underwater level, Donut Secret 1, which is obviously where some of the fish enemies like the Cheep Cheep return. But there's also the Blurp, which is like a green fish with goggles, and then there's the Rip Van Fish, a fish that you can find sleeping at first, but if you get way too close to it, it'll wake up and start chasing after Mario. I hate these fuckers. Oh yeah, I probably should have said this, but to get to this level, you gotta find the secret exit in Donut Plains, which involves grabbing a key and putting it in a keyhole. A lot of the secret exits actually use this method, and that visual of Mario getting sucked through the keyhole is gonna stick with me forever. But yes, Donut Secret 1 also has this, and it'll take you to the secret ghost house. This is the only ghost house in the game that actually includes a unique boss fight, a big boo that you can only defeat by tossing blocks up at it, and you gotta time it just right too. It's actually a really cool boss fight. However, not only does this extra pathway lead to the secret ghost house, but it can also lead to a warp pipe that takes you to a small section from the final world, the Valley of Bowser. Interesting location. A few of the secret levels do this, and it's a pretty cool way of foreshadowing what's to come. However, the main secret level that you're gonna want to go after can be found through the main ghost house. This secret level is literally known as the top secret area. It doesn't contain any enemies or even a goalpost. It's just a simple level with one screen and 5 power-up blocks, with the center one containing a Yoshi. And if you're already big Mario, then the 2 left blocks contain fire flowers, and the 2 on the right contain Cape Feathers. Obviously, I always go for the Cape Feathers, and with the help of the item stock, I can carry an extra Cape Feather for later. Pretty often, I'd find myself going back to this area over and over again to stock up on power-ups, which can actually be extremely time-consuming having to walk through every map screen over and over again. However, there are some special pathways you can find and use as quick shortcuts, and these are the secret star pathways. This will lead you to a special world known as Star World, which takes the place of World 8. I'll delve more into this world later, but if you find enough star pathways, you can use multiple pathways as shortcuts to travel a little faster. It's pretty handy. But moving on to Castle 2, it doesn't have any fences or anything, it's just a lot more traditional platforming. Also, I love killing the dry bones with the cape, it's so cool. The Koopaling for Castle number 2 is Morden, who just climbs up a wall and falls down to cause a mini earthquake. All you gotta do is jump on Morden 3 times, and he'll be defeated. The cutscene afterwards shows Mario kicking and stomping the castle into an oblivion. World 3 takes place inside of a dome, with it fittingly being called the Vanilla Dome. This world also has 4 main section levels and one ghost house. The water level also contains a secret pathway to the Red Switch Palace, which of course activates the red blocks in levels as platforms. That's all they do though, they don't give you a power up, which I find a little weird. I feel like the red blocks easily could have contained the fire flowers maybe? Wouldn't that have been a little fitting? It's such a weird missed opportunity. The ghost house for this world contains these weird ass big bubbles, which you can actually spin jump on without getting hurt. This ghost house also contains the big boos, but they're just regular enemies and not a boss fight like last time. All the ghosts are invulnerable, but you can actually defeat the big boos by sliding into them. Oh yeah, I forgot, Mario's ass is one of the most indestructible things in gaming. But getting back to Vanilla Dome, one of the secret pathways you can find not only leads to another star pathway, but also a warp pipe, which can take you outside on top of the dome. This pathway has 2 secret levels and the first fortress of the game. The fortresses are basically the same as the castles that were in Mario 3, though this fortress you encounter early on is actually completely underwater, which is a really interesting gimmick. And instead of the fortress having a Koopaling boss at the end, there's a new boss known as Reznor. Reznor is probably the most intriguing boss in the game since he has a unique look, and all you have to do is just knock all 4 of them off the platforms to win. But it's not that simple. The more you defeat Reznor, the force starts to disappear, which can actually make the boss more difficult if you're not fast enough. Again, it's a very unique fight, and you only ever come across it in the few fortress levels in the game, which makes Reznor pretty special for this game, and he wouldn't be brought back for another mainline Mario game until New Super Mario Bros. 2. Huh. I hope that was worth it. Oh yeah, in the secret level, Vanilla Secret 3, you'll come across these cute little dolphins. This is the only level where you can find the dolphins, and you mainly use them as platforms to get through the level. However, in the original Japanese release of the game, Yoshi was actually able to fucking eat the dolphins. This obviously got changed for the international releases, but holy shit, that's a little morbid. Alright, so Castle 3 opens with a hallway section where we encounter the Magic Koopas, who are basically prototype Kameks, a character that wouldn't get properly introduced until Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. Basically, prototype Kamek can shoot stuff at Mario and turn breakable blocks into enemies. You encounter the Magic Koopas in a few other castles, and them turning blocks into enemies is actually sometimes needed for level progression. But for Castle 3, you mainly just focus on avoiding the Magic Koopas. The Koopaling for Castle 3 is Lemmy, whose fight consists of him and 2 fake Lemmys popping out of warp pipes. You basically just jump on the correct Lemmy 3 times, and that's it. The cutscene shows Mario grabbing a hammer and swinging away at the whole castle. It's probably my favorite one. World 4 is Twin Bridges, which of course contains levels on 2 different bridges. When you get here by normal means, you only have to play through one bridge, the bottom one, which is like 2 levels until the castle. But if you were able to get to the top section in the Vanilla Dome, then you can access the top bridge. There's 4 main levels and 1 secret level that takes place underwater. The non-underwater levels mainly focus on Mario traveling on bridges, whilst navigating through moving platforms. Butter Bridge 1 is actually an auto-scroller, which are levels that I just don't enjoy playing no matter what franchise this is. Another one of the bridge levels not only has Mario jumping on different moving platforms, but one of the main obstacles are these fucking chainsaws, which you can spin jump on. This also means even Yoshi can bounce off them. What a badass dinosaur. The one non-bridge level that's also not a secret pathway is Cookie Mountain, which contains the mole enemies. These guys are really irritating. This level also contains the Sumo Bros, who stomp on the ground to create fire. They can be defeated by just jumping underneath a block they're standing on. Also, yes, a lot of the levels in this game are named after foods. Whatever, Mario just likes the food aesthetic, which we're also going to see in future games. Oh yeah, I also ate enough special berries with Yoshi to cause this cloud to appear, which will drop these bonus coins. Apparently, if you collect all 10 coins, you get a 1-up, but I failed miserably at collecting all of them, so oh well. Castle number 4 is interesting. The first section's level design is more compact and includes a lot of swinging spike balls, but in a different section, the fences get brought back, which gave me more opportunity to build up 1-ups. The Koopaling for Castle 4 is Ludwig, who can breathe fireballs. You just gotta jump on him 3 times, and every time you jump on him, he'll go into his shell and move back and forth for a bit. It's an alright fight. In the cutscene, Mario ends up launching the castle away and it crashes into a hill in the background, which causes the hill to need a bandage. It also shows up on the map screen, which is a really cute detail. The next world is the Forest of Illusion, which probably has the most complicated map layout of all the worlds. Most of the levels obviously take place in the forest, and usually include multiple secret exits. This world's also where we get to see the Wiggler, in their first ever appearance. If you jump on them once, they'll get rageful and start running around faster. They're really cute enemies, but every time I see them, I can't help but think of that Wigger Wednesday tweet Nintendo accidentally made. Oh, that's gonna live down in infamy. Forest of Illusion is also the one world where I remember seeing the Goombas the most, and they're not really like the Goombas from the original games. You can't just jump on them to kill them. Instead, it'll just flip them upside down so you can pick them up. Only one of the levels takes place underwater, which also has a secret pathway to the Blue Switch Palace. Chronologically, this can be the last Switch Palace in the game, and it'll activate the blue blocks in levels, which, just like the red blocks, don't contain a power-up like the yellow or green blocks. While I did say the red blocks could have easily contained fire flowers, I'm not really sure what power-up the blue blocks could have contained. Maybe some other power-up that got cut in development? I don't know. One of the other secret pathways leads to a secret fortress, which is similar to the other fortresses, but this one can also be a bit of a tease for any players that are trying to get out of the forest. Yeah, this is a bit of a fake out exit. Basically, you gotta find a secret pathway to Forest of Illusion 3 from Forest of Illusion 2. Then you gotta find a secret pathway from that level just to get to the 5th castle. Again, it's one of the most confusing map layouts in the entire game. Even as a kid, I actually remember being stuck in the forest for a while. But anyways, castle number 5 starts out with Mario needing to use this snake block platform to travel over a huge lava pit. Just carefully navigate it and you'll get to the end. I wonder whose idea it was to make a reference to Snake. I mean, that's such a classic old video game, and incorporating it into a fucking Mario game as a platform is pretty interesting. Not to mention no snake boos in one of the ghost houses. This castle also introduces the Bowser statues that can breathe fire, which kinda remind me of the ones from Mario 3 that can shoot lasers. The Koopaling this time around is Roy, whose fight is almost the exact same as Morden's, but this time the walls are closing in. Again, just jump on him 3 times and that's it. The cutscene at the end shows the castle being blown up right in Mario's face, which leads to a pretty unique sprite of Mario all burnt up. This is the only time you ever see this sprite, so it's pretty interesting. This takes us to World 6, Chocolate Island. There's 5 levels, along with a ghost house and a fortress. This is the world where most of the main enemies are Dino Rhinos, along with the mini versions of them that are called Dino Torches, which is really cute. 2 levels here have multiple exits, with one of them leading to a warp pipe, which will take you to the secret section at the bottom of World 7. This is where you'll find Chocolate Island's secret level, which is unfortunately named Chocolate Secret, which is a title I can't look at the same anymore because the internet has ruined my life. Don't look it up. One of the most noteworthy parts of the game is an infamous glitch that you can pull off in Chocolate Island 3 using Yoshi and a cape feather. Basically, once you get to the end, have Yoshi jump off an enemy, then hop off Yoshi with the cape feather. You should land on the top platform, but the screen's not gonna follow Mario. After that, just walk through the goalpost and... Yeah, the color palette gets all freaky, and now the overworld looks all screwed up. It doesn't mess up the game permanently, especially since going to different screens will fix the colors, but it's just a fascinating little graphical glitch that you can all try at home. Castle number 6 is easily one of the most difficult levels in the game. It introduces a really freaky obstacle known as Skewer. Basically a huge ass spiked up screw that can go either up or down, blocking your pathway and potentially killing Mario. Like, pretty instantly, you can't use your invincibility frames. The skewer is going to appear a lot more in future games, and it somehow keeps getting more terrifying each time they bring it back. But we can all thank Mario World for introducing it. Well, the Koopaling here is Wendy, who has a very similar boss fight to Lemmy, but her fight has 2 lava bubbles bouncing around instead of just 1. Upon defeating Wendy, Mario wipes away the castle. However, this doesn't lead you straight to the final world. Instead, you'll have to go through an underwater level traveling through a ghost ship, which fittingly enough is filled with a bunch of boos. It's a pretty difficult level, and it's not really part of any of the actual worlds. It's just more of a link between World 6 and 7. And it it ends with Mario grabbing some magic ball item that doesn't appear anywhere else in the game. Upon clearing the ghost ship, Bowser's lair rises out the water, and this will lead you to the final world, the Valley of Bowser. Yeah, unlike Mario 1 or 3 where there are 8 worlds you gotta go to, Mario World only has the main 7, plus the 2 special ones, but I'll talk about that later. But when it comes to the Valley of Bowser, first off, I love the overworld music here so much. It sounds so good. The Valley of Bowser is home to 3 regular levels, 1 ghost house, a secret fortress you can get to, and the 7th and final castle in the game. There's a pretty funny bit in the first level here where if you already activated all the red blocks from the red switch palace, then you're gonna find a giant mole stuck inside of a red box. It's pretty damn funny. But speaking of the red switch palace, there's an unused level in the Valley of Bowser that would have included the red switch palace, but it was cut and was pretty much moved to the vanilla dome like it appears in the final game. Anyways, to get to the last fortress, you gotta find a secret pathway in the Valley of Bowser too, which means that this is actually the last time you get to fight Reznor. And it's also one of the most difficult levels in the game, all because of those fucking skewers, dude. They are everywhere in this damn level. I know it's a secret fortress and all, but don't you think this many skewers is a little overkill? But of course, if you choose to go down the normal pathway, you'll eventually get to castle number 7. This one shockingly doesn't have any skewers, but it does have the spike balls and prototype Kamek causing trouble again. The last Koopaling you fight is my least favorite one, Larry the Dork, who can be defeated in the same way as Iggy back in castle number 1. It is insanely easy and underwhelming for the last Koopaling boss, but it's Larry, so I don't give a shit, and Mario just picks up the castle and tosses it away like garbage. Since this is the last castle, I should probably mention that once you beat a castle, it'll fall apart on the overworld, which is a cool detail, but this also means you can't replay a single castle in the game. I'm not sure if I would consider that a flaw, but seeing how this game has a save feature and all, and it's also insanely easy to go back to each world and replay levels thanks to the connecting maps, it is a little weird that we're not really able to replay the castles. Same goes with fortresses, since those can fall apart too. Well, I guess you can't really replay the switch palaces either, but then again, why would you? They're insanely short and simple. But whatever, with all the main levels and castles completed, this will lead us to the final level in the game, Bowser's Castle. Okay, first off, I kinda like how Bowser's Castle just has his name on bright neon lights. I don't know, I just find that really funny. And you're probably expecting this to be the hardest level in the game since it's the last level, but it can actually be the opposite. The castle has 3 main sections, and the game actually gives you a choice of choosing between 4 different doors in the first 2 sections. So if you choose correctly, you can find really easy sections to plow through. I usually do door number 2 since it has the fences again, and door number 8 since I find it pretty easy to get through, despite the Charging Chucks jumping everywhere. After getting the first 2 sections done, you'll go through one last area where you're traveling through a dark hallway and avoiding certain enemies. These can include some Mecha Koopas that you can jump onto to pick up and toss around, remember that. And also, this is the only known part of the game where the ninjas from Mario 2 appear. In fact, this is the only time they've ever appeared outside of Mario 2. I mean, I guess besides Super Mario Run, but who gives a shit? What the hell are they doing in Mario World? And why do their sprites still look very NES? I'm just gonna theorize that since this game is apparently unfinished according to Miyamoto, I guess the ninjas being here were probably just the leftover from a prototype. However, there isn't just one way to enter Bowser's Castle. You may have noticed that there are actually 2 separate pathways on the map, which can lead to 2 different doors. There's the front door, which you can get to after defeating Castle 7, and there's also a back door? You can get to this after beating the fortress on the secret path, and the back door can actually let you skip the first 2 sections of Bowser's Castle. I guess it would make sense for me to question or joke about how Bowser has a fucking back door on his damn castle, but here's something that bugs me, and I haven't really seen anyone else point this out, but on the map, if this is supposed to be the back door, then why the fuck is it facing the same way as the front door? That's a perspective fail. Now the game's ruined. I'm turning it off. Jokes aside, whether you're using the front or back door, you'll eventually get to the final boss of the game, Bowser. And this is one of my all-time favorite final boss battles. Bowser's flying around in his little Koopa clown car, and he'll toss Mecha Koopas down at Mario, which, if you can remember earlier in Bowser's castle, after you jump on them, you can pick them up, which means you have to carefully toss them up back to Bowser. It's kinda sick that the game sorta teaches you how to do this just before the boss fight. Not only that, but Bowser can also drop these big steely balls that Mario can spin jump off of. Growing up, I always thought those things looked like fushigi balls. Does anyone else remember those? No, just me? Okay. After you get enough hits on Bowser, he'll fly away and drop some flames for Mario to avoid. There are 3 phases during this fight, and every time you get through a phase, Peach will pop out for a bit and drop a mushroom for Mario. Bowser's little swaying animation actually changes between each phase, with the last phase having him stomping on the ground in the clown car, which will shake the screen too. This is honestly the best boss battle in the game. It's decently difficult and really memorable for a final boss too. I love the music, and the atmosphere here with the stormy weather is really well done. Actually, remember back in Donut Plane's Secret Ghost House, whenever I said that Big Boo is one of the best boss fights too? I just realized this and the Bowser fight function the exact same. No wonder I like both these fights so much. Something you may notice about Bowser in this game is that you never see him outside the clown car, which is a shame because this has gotta be one of Bowser's most interesting looking designs ever. But thanks to the Giga Leak, there were actually some full body sprites of Bowser that were found in some prototypes. There's even another version of the Bowser sprites where he actually looks like the bridge Bowser fight in the first game. That's pretty freaking cool, but I won't lie, seeing a full body sprite of Bowser's design and world is a bit uncanny, especially considering I've only ever seen the top of this design after all these years. Honestly, there's a bunch more cut content that was found in the Giga Leak, so again, I just recommend looking up the rest on the cutting room floor if any of you are still interested. Well, upon defeating Bowser, the clown car flips upside down and Peach floats down from it, which then leads to Bowser flying off in the distance. Peach gives Mario a kiss and declares that his adventure is over, with fireworks going off in the background. It's a really cute way to end the game before the credits. And just like Bowser, this sprite for Peach is pretty unique, and the only time you ever see Peach is at the end of the game. And in terms of interesting cut content from the Giga Leak, there appears to be an early version of Peach's screaming animation that they obviously had to redo, because this early version of the animation just makes it look like she's laughing maniacally. Maybe it's just Stockholm Syndrome Peach. But anyways, the credits roll, which includes one of my favorite music pieces not just in the entire series, but also just in video games. I love the end credits music so much. Plus, for the first time in the series, the actual game staff gets credited. How nice. And it shows Mario walking off with Peach who's riding on top of Yoshi, along with all the other Yoshi eggs following behind them. After the staff roll, they end up back at Yoshi's house where all the rescued Yoshi eggs hatch, and collectively thank Mario for saving the day. After that, the game shows the enemy lineup just like in Mario 3, and that's pretty much the end. The final screen shows very interesting looking sprites for Mario, Peach, and Luigi, and they look a little unnerving. Like, Peach looks fine, but something about Mario feels a little off, and Luigi just looks concerning. That's all the main worlds in the game. But as I've mentioned a few times before, there's 2 bonus worlds that I haven't looked at just yet. The first one is the Star World. As I said before, you get to the Star World by finding the secret star pathways in the levels. This leads to 5 bonus levels where you have to find secret pathways in order to reach the other star paths. To beat a lot of the levels here, you gotta find secret exits. And I'd highly recommend activating all 4 switch palaces, because most of the levels here are pretty unbeatable if you don't have all the blocks activated. Not only can these create pathways to other star points that can in turn be used as quick shortcuts in the overworld, but all the pathways can create a star on the map, which is really cute. Though you may notice that there's not just 5-star pathways, there's also a 6-star in the center. Once you're able to get to the center star, this will take you to the second bonus world and the 9th world overall, the Special Zone. This is the true final world consisting of 8 of the most difficult levels in the game. Obviously, playing this on NSO with the rewind function can make this really easy to plow through, but playing this on authentic hardware, well, you better stock up on extra lives and be prepared to travel back to the top secret world in Donut Plains over and over again. There's one really cute audio Easter egg in the special world. If you do nothing but just sit on the map screen for 2 solid minutes, it'll play a little remix of the Super Mario Bros. Theme. It's so fucking cute. While all of these levels can be a pain in the ass, honestly the best part of them are their official English names. In order we have Gnarly, Tubular, Way Cool, Awesome, Groovy, Mondo, Outrageous, and Funky.
No, really guys, how about Bodacious? How about Radical? Cowabunga? How about Bitching? I like that one.
These are easily the stupidest but also most hilariously 90s level names I've ever seen. So, is getting to Funky worth it in the end? Well, right near the end of the level, it'll show rows of coins spelling out the text, "You are a super player." It's really cute, and what's also pretty funny is that in the original Japanese version, it only said "You are super player," but they obviously needed to add an extra A in the international versions. But what do you get after completing Funky? Well, upon beating the special world, it can warp you back to Yoshi's Island. And almost immediately you see that the game goes through a seasonal change, with levels and even several enemies changing to reflect the autumn season. This is one of the most fascinating 100% awards ever put into a video game. It's a pretty minor change, all things considered, but it's still pretty cool. Though there is one tiny problem. Once you beat Funky, there is no way you can change the game back to normal. Yeah, this autumn shit is permanent. So I hope you enjoy this season. The game still looks nice. One other cool thing you can do is find all 96 exits in the game, which will give you a cute little star on your save file. That's it. That's all you really get for finding all the exits. There's nothing else in terms of extra content to mention, apart from the 2-player mode, which works just like it did in Mario 1 and 3. So player 1 is Mario, and player 2 is Luigi, who in the original release is back to being Green Mario again. But like I mentioned, this is what Luigi looks like in the original release of the game. In 1993, Super Mario All-Stars would be released. This contained full remakes of Mario 1, 2, and 3, and the first ever release of the lost levels outside of Japan. However, over a year after All-Star's initial release, a different version of the game would come out in December 1994. This version of the game would be known as Super Mario All-Stars plus Super Mario World. And yeah, the title makes it pretty obvious what this is. This version of All-Stars impressively includes the 4 previous remakes of the games and the entirety of Super Mario World all on one cartridge. It's so freaking cool. Okay, so some of you may be wondering just what exactly this later release of Mario World included. Well, the game is mostly the same, but there was one big change. Luigi. Luigi was actually given updated sprites for this version, and these are quite possibly the best sprites that Luigi has ever gotten. I love the poses and expressiveness of these Luigi sprites, and it makes me kinda sad that these are only exclusive to this version of Mario World. And with how badass I think these new sprites are, it makes me kinda wish that there was just an option to pick Luigi instead of Mario. Like, he doesn't play any differently, but I still would've liked to play as this version of Luigi. I love him. Even his fucking victory pose at the end of levels was changed. Instead of doing the peace sign like Mario, he just crosses his arms. He's so fucking cool, I want to be him. And going back to the Giga Leak real quick, some early versions of All-Stars plus Mario World were actually found, which means that this Luigi actually has some unused sprites, with one of them including this fucking weird sprite of him giving the finger. This is an official sprite. Someone had to make this and they probably tried slipping it by Miyamoto. I kinda wish it was in the game. What a badass. This is literally the best version of Luigi ever.
What's this? He's flipping the bird. He's giving the finger. And I'm not making this up.
But getting back to the final version of All-Stars plus Mario World, there actually is one minor but kinda cool inclusion. Remember how all the other games had a little display on the save file, where it showed how the games control and gave you different options to use? Well, since Mario World didn't really need that, it instead shows a little icon of Yoshi. How cute. This was also the first version of the game where I got all 96 exits. So there's that. I don't really know what else there is to say about Super Mario World. To me, it's the best 2D Mario game I've ever played. Mario just controls the absolute best here. Not to mention the overall charm that comes from this game's levels, art style, music, boss fights, the cape feather, that awesome Luigi sprite in All-Stars. There's just so much about this game that I adore. Another thing I'd recommend is just watching speedruns of this game, since mechanically, it's so damn fascinating. Fans have been dissecting the code of this game for so long that they actually managed to find a way to beat the game in like 40 seconds. And some fans have actually been able to mess around with the code to make it play different games like Snake, and one guy even got the game code to run Super Mario Brothers. Like, the original. 8-bit and all. How the what? This game is magical. Fuck yeah, I recommend Super Mario World, but I'd be kinda shocked if not every Mario fan has played it at this point. As I said at the start, it was an insanely successful launch title. It became the best-selling Super Nintendo game, shipping 20 million copies, mostly thanks to it being a pack-in copy for most of its life, and just like the NES games, Mario World would get ported on several future Nintendo consoles. First, there were the original Virtual Console releases, with the game coming to the Wii in 2007, Wii U in 2013, and 3DS in 2016. But all of these are gone now. Rest in peace, Virtual Console, you deserved a better fate. So I guess moving on to how you're able to legally play the game nowadays, Mario World was launched alongside the SNES app for Switch in 2019, which you can play for $20 a year. And it was also obviously included on the SNES Classic Mini in 2017. The emulation's decent, and they're not horrible ways to play the game. When it comes to different versions of Mario World, there's the 1994 All-Stars version I talked about, which has never been re-released in any form. Kind of a shame, especially since the Luigi sprites on that version are such a nice update, so I guess go track down the original cartridge for this version if you're interested, or just emulate it, whatever. And with all due respect, this version of All-Stars with Mario World really should have been the one included on that weird 2010 Wii release, which was the only way you could even play All-Stars on the Wii since that collection was never put on the normal Virtual Console on the Wii or Wii U. I'll never understand Nintendo. Alright, the other main version of Super Mario World is the 2001 Game Boy Advance port, Super Mario Advance 2. This, simply put, is a phenomenal port of the game. It looks and sounds spot on, it plays perfectly, the mushroom works like normal again, it gives you the option to replay the castles, which is really cool, and just overall, it could easily be debated if this is even the best version of Mario World. Oh yeah, another little thing I noticed Advance 2 fixed, it's that Yoshi no longer has orange arms like he did in the original. Now the arms just match whatever color Yoshi you're using. It's a very minor fix, but that's pretty cool. My sincerest condolences to the orange arm Yoshi fans though. I didn't grow up with this version of the game, but my cousins did have a copy of it and I played it every now and then. I didn't really enjoy playing this version that much because of this port's screen crunch, but I'll actually admit, upon playing this version on an HD TV thanks to the Wii U port, the screen crunch didn't really seem to bother me, so I guess playing it on a bigger screen just really helped. I guess my only real complaint with this version is, God, I miss that Luigi sprite from the All-Stars version. Luigi is still fun to play as though. The Mario and Luigi mode is really sick, especially since this was the first Mario Advance game to implement it. Luigi jumping higher is also a nice inclusion. So yeah, this might be my favorite version of Mario World. Really, when it comes to comparing both the SNES and GBA versions, it's not really huge competition. They're both great games. Plus, like the other Advance ports, Advance 2 includes the cool remake of Mario Bros. As a bonus, so that's still cool. Well, you could have gotten Super Mario Advance 2 on the Wii U eShop back in 2014, but this version was recently delisted in March 2023, which is incredibly sad. Thankfully though, the GBA app for Switch was launched a month prior in February, and by May, the rest of the Mario Advance games got added to the app, which means if you have a Switch, you still have the choice of choosing between the SNES or GBA versions of Super Mario World, with the only real downside being that the GBA app is $50 a year, while the SNES app is only $20. It's still neat that we have access to both versions of the game. The Virtual Console is officially dead forever, so this is the best we're getting for now. But you know what? I'm getting a little bored talking about official ports. It's the same song and dance over and over again. Let's talk about an unofficial port for a change. In 1995, some bootleg company known as the Hummer Team would release an NES port of Super Mario World. Yes, you heard that right, an NES port. This is one of the more infamous unlicensed video games out there, but this version has actually been regarded as being pretty faithful to the original game. But there are some obvious downgrades to this version, like some of the enemies being cut, the animations aren't as good, the levels were cut down from 78 to 28, and the music isn't perfectly recreated either. But overall, it's not as awful as you might expect. The controls are also not that great either, but there's apparently Game Genie codes that can fix the controls? A cheat code for better control. I'd be mad, but this is a bootleg, what was I expecting? But what is easily the most impressive thing about this unlicensed port is that it actually managed to pull off a playable 8-bit Yoshi, which was something Nintendo has tried claiming wasn't possible to do on the NES. Yet some random bootleg company managed to pull it off? Huh. So do I recommend playing this unlicensed port of Mario World? Not really. Maybe if you're morbidly curious. It's unofficial, so it wasn't really going to be perfect to begin with. So I guess go download the ROM for it online and check it out for yourselves. And I guess this wouldn't be a proper Mario World review if I didn't make mention of the short-lived TV series from DiC Entertainment, which was made back in 1991. This was the third and last real Mario cartoon from DiC, coming after the Super Show and the Mario 3 cartoon, which I completely forgot to make mention of in my Mario 3 review. Whoops. I never really sat down and watched this cartoon for myself as a kid, but I do remember clips of it being used in several YouTube poops, most prominently the Mama Luigi episode.
Mama? Mama Luigi?
That laugh is legendary. I'm pretty sure this is the most famous episode from the cartoon, but I wonder how many people realize that this was actually the final episode of the show to air. Like, what a way to go out.
Good night, Yoshi.
Night, Mama Luigi.
But getting back to the Mario World game, it's fantastic and it's one of my all-time favorite video games. It did a lot to change the Mario franchise and introduced a lot of elements that would carry over in future installments. So go play it on the original SNES version, or the All-Stars version, maybe mod it on your Wii, Wii U, or 3DS, or go play the game on the SNES Classic Mini, or the SNES app on Switch. And be sure to check out the GBA port too by any means necessary. I fucking love this game. The next time I look at a Mario game, it'll be the sequel, Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, released in 1995, a whole 5 years later. And this is also a prequel, obviously, which I'll delve more into when I get to it. Next review's not going to be a Mario game though, but it is Mario related and I'm very excited. So be sure to stick around for that. Until then, I'll see you all in the next review, and thank you so much for watching. Go play Mario World!